Good afternoon, everyone. I'll begin by introducing myself. I'm Diane Frendag, and I'm the Director of Membership Services at the American Astronomical Society. And I would like to kindly welcome you to today's webinar, 10 plus ways to leverage LinkedIn for career advancement and job searching. First, I'm going to, nice dance. First, I'm going to have a commercial break for something called SU5, I think it is. And it's something for first-year grad students in physics and astronomy. If you're starting grad school, there's a mentoring group that is formed. Take a look, maybe you'll want to participate. And I know that the organizers are also looking for advanced year grad students to serve as mentors. So please do take a look. And now, I guess before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to review some of the usual webinar items. First, everyone in this webinar is in listen-only mode. However, you're encouraged to share your questions by typing them into the questions pane, which is the questions area or box in the control panel. I will collect these questions for the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. I usually nudge attendees about half past the hour via the chat function and nudge them to send in questions. And then please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the AAS website in the next few days. And next commercial break is for DPS, which has gone virtual. And they are going to do some synchronous and asynchronous content. The asynchronous starts on the 19th of October. Important deadlines on Monday, you have to have your abstracts in. On the 20th of August, the Hartman student grant application is due. And since there's no travel this year, I think they're going to use those funds towards registration. So take a look at that. And now let me introduce our speaker. Elena G. Levine is a STEM career consultant, science journalist, professional speaker, and corporate comedian. Her book, Networking for Nerds, has the honor of being named one of the top 5 books of 2015 by Physics Today magazine. She writes Your Unicorn Career, a careers column for the AAAS, and is a frequent speaker for the AAS. And I guess my last slide here has the navigation to the careers section of the AAS website, and where our webinars are archived and where you can find the schedule of the upcoming ones. And then finally, we have launched a one-on-one career consultations with Elena. For $20, you can get 20 minutes of her time to talk about CV reviews. What else, Elena?
Yeah, so these are career consultations. By the way, they are completely private and confidential. I will not reveal anything of what you and I discuss in the consultation. The AAS will never know what you and I converse about. And we can talk about anything from reviewing your CV and your research statement, for example, to prepping you for your interview, whether it's in industry, academia, or anywhere else, to other career questions that you might have. You might be interested in pivoting into a new career, into a new sector. You might want to know what you can do in terms of communications or data science or aerospace types of careers. It's pretty much whatever you need or want to learn or talk about is up to you. So it's everything under the banner of helping you find, create, land, and keep your dream job. So excited to be working with the AAS to offer this to the community.
Thank you, Elena. So everyone look for an email going out to members. You have to be a member to take advantage of this opportunity. So look for that in the coming weeks. And now I'll just hand it back to Elena. Thank you so much for providing today's content.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you to the amazing astronomers, astrophysicists, planetary scientists, and space science professionals who are in the audience, broadcasting live from this planet and to every other, literally every other exoplanet that we know exists today. I am so excited to be here with you to talk about how to utilize LinkedIn and really harness the power of this amazing platform. This is something that I use all the time. This is something, quite frankly, that you could be and should be using all the time. It is an absolutely tremendously enriching and powerful channel to network, to appropriately self-promote, to find a job, to land a job, to grow collaborations. And this is whether we're in industry or not, whether we're in academia or not, it honestly does not matter where we are or what we want to do with our career, LinkedIn right now, at least in time and space in this universe, LinkedIn is the professional marketplace. So we're going to talk about how to utilize it. And we're also going to, I'm going to give you a live tour of different features of LinkedIn that you can be thinking about, that you can really get an opportunity to explore and also to leverage, because these are the key areas that I think if you're going to spend time in building a profile on LinkedIn and spending extra time to expand on that profile and do strategic win-win networking, these are the areas that I think we should focus on. So I'm going to talk to you about that. But speaking of social media, I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. And in fact, I'm going to be showing you my LinkedIn profile in a few moments. But join me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile URL is Elena G. Levine, so you can easily find it. You do not have to customize your invitation for me. Just connect with me, because I utilize LinkedIn as the primary way to communicate free career planning resources to STEM nerds everywhere, including myself. As you know, I'm a STEM nerd myself. And so I want to be able to send you information about free webinars and articles and tip sheets and things that myself and other members of the career development community are developing specifically for you. So that's how I do it. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You are also welcome, as Diane mentioned, this is being recorded, and you are welcome to take photographs and screenshots of any of the slides. You're welcome to quote or tweet or post anything that I say or any slide that I have. I ask that if you do post, just use the handle for the organization at @AAS_office and my handle at Elena G. Levine, #networking for nerds. I want to be able to promote you, and I'm going to repost anything that you post. So let's talk about our social media strategy. We're going to talk about planning and preparation, which involves research, execution, monitoring, and maintenance. But before we begin, and part of our preparation is understanding what I call the pillars of importance in engaging on social media. And this is true for LinkedIn, it's true for Instagram, it's true for Facebook, it's true for Twitter, it's true for any platform that exists now and in the future. These are the fundamental pillars of importance that we need to be thinking about as we not only build a social media presence and grow it, but engage others on those platforms. So the first thought that we always have to be aware of is that we have to be professional at all times in all ways. What that means is, when I say the word professional, what I mean is somebody who is serious about their craft, right? Somebody who demonstrates through their words, through their posts, through the things that they say, the things that even the words that they use, and even the images that they share, that they are serious about their craft, right? So you're serious about your career and about your field of astronomy and astrophysics and planetary sciences and so forth. I, as a professional speaker, am very serious about my field and my discipline. And so everything that I post demonstrates that seriousness. It doesn't mean that I can't be funny. It doesn't mean that I can't be my authentic nature. In fact, key to all of this, I didn't even mention this, but the key for all of this is to be our full authentic self. Absolutely. However, there are things that I wouldn't necessarily post on LinkedIn or post on Twitter or even post on Facebook, because they're not professional. They don't demonstrate the seriousness that I have about what I do. A great example of that is I happen to like to curse a lot. If you interact with me one-on-one, and Diane knows this for sure, she's probably nodding excitingly at this moment. If you're interacting with me privately, I'm going to curse, as long as you're not offended by that, of course. But it would not be appropriate and it would not be professional for me to curse while I'm giving a speech, while I'm giving a webinar. So that's just one thing that I do, that even though it's part of who I am, admittedly, if I'm personally interacting with you, I'm not going to do it in a professional platform. And that's the key. When we're engaging people on any social media, even if it is our friends in a private LinkedIn, in a private Facebook group, there still has to be some sort of decorum, because everything that we put online is potentially viewable by anybody else at any given time, including potential bosses, potential collaborators, future, past, and present. So be professional. The second thing that you want to be aware of in terms of a pillar of importance when we're engaging on social media is to be dynamic. What that means is we want to be able to provide new content, new information that would be of use, and that's the third point, being valuable, that would be of use and of value to the communities that we're aiming to serve and collaborate with. So what do I mean by that? Well, what that means is we can't just expect to post something on LinkedIn once and that will lead us to get a job or lead us to have people be interested in asking us if they would be interested in collaborating with us. We have to be dynamic. We have to constantly interact and interface with the community so that they know that we are professional, that we're providing value, but that what happens is amazing to me, is that the more dynamic you are in your content, the more posts that you have that again are professional in value, of interest to the community, what happens is that your brand, which is your promise of value, right? We all have a brand. I have a brand and you have a brand. And our brand is our promise to deliver excellence, dependability, and expertise in everything we do. You may have heard me say that. So what we're doing is we are allowing our brand to be communicated to interested parties in the community, people who might be interested in collaborating with us and maybe even hiring us. And likewise, we might be interested in hiring them in the future. Every time we post, we are making an imprint in people's minds to allow them to remember our brand and to equate our brand, our promise of value, with, admittedly, a promise of value, right? Because we're delivering value. We're posting information that's going to be of use to the organization, use to the field, use to the community. Let me give you an example. So as I mentioned, I wanted you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn to post, for example, articles about career development topics or announce webinars that I'm giving and other people are giving that you could potentially attend. I do this and try to do this, admittedly, on a regular basis because I want you to equate me, my brand, with somebody who is helping you to succeed, somebody who is aiming to enable your success with information that is valuable for you, with resources that are invaluable, hopefully, to you and your career development and advancement. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's a great example of the dynamic element that I myself am trying to embody and employ as I engage people on social media and in particular on LinkedIn. So the more dynamic you are, the more content that you're providing, both proactively by adding your own content to the site as well as reacting to people. They post something and you say, this is so interesting. What have you ever done X? Have you ever read Y? By engaging people in a dynamic way and adding content regularly, you create imprints in people's minds where they start to equate your brand with excellence. They start to equate your brand with somebody that they would be interested in potentially collaborating with. So this relates to the fourth point, which is to be seen. Right, that we want to be seen in a positive light, in adding value, right? We're not going to be posting things that are divisive or dismissive or offensive or inappropriate, particularly for the context and for the type of platform we're operating in. So it's very important that everybody sees our brand and our reputation and indeed our attitude as well as something positive. Absolutely positive. We also have to be consistent. We have to be consistent in our messaging, but also consistent in the actual sites that we use. So one of the examples I use is, so on LinkedIn, my name is Elena G. Levine. That is my profile name. And I'm going to tell you how to actually customize your URL so that you don't have what seems to be random numbers and letters. You can actually have a customized public profile URL. I have the same on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @ElenaGLevine. So I try to keep that consistency across different platforms so people know who I am if I post in one versus another. I also am very mindful of the fact that, like I said, anything we put on there is foreverly going to be put there, including words that I make up in the middle of a speech, like I often do. But the point is that cyberspace is forever space, as my mother used to say. And so if I'm going to move forward in my career, I want to make sure that I'm very, very mindful of what I'm putting online now could be viewed perhaps in a different way, perhaps in a different framework or mindset in the future, and perhaps what I'm writing now might not be appropriate for the future, or perhaps this picture of me where I'm totally drunk is not appropriate for a boss to potentially see. So I'm going to make sure that I'm clear about that. And then finally, we cannot let being on social media, and in particular LinkedIn, become a time sink. What that means is that if you find that all you've been doing in the day is tweeting or looking on LinkedIn and being interactive on LinkedIn, but all you've been doing for 8 hours is LinkedIn, that's not going to help you, because we cannot build a successful social media presence and leverage social media platforms to make a difference in both our career planning and that of our communities if we are not building on a foundation of excellence associated with the metrics of success of our field. So if you're spending all your time on social media and not writing that paper, not writing that grant proposal, not talking to potential collaborators and building opportunities to expand our knowledge and exchange knowledge, then all falls down. Without a strong foundation, we cannot build a strong house. And this, the foundation of excellence, is the most important foundation in terms of social media. So if you are wondering whether or not you actually are spending too much time on social media, do an experiment. Track your time in 15-minute increments for the course of 3 days and see what you actually did every 15 minutes. And you might be surprised that you're spending way too much time on social media and not enough in producing outputs associated with the success metrics of your field. Okay, let's talk about LinkedIn specifically. So LinkedIn, as many of you may know, is built on the fundamental idea of 6 degrees of separation. And that's part of the reason why I absolutely love it. It is bound by this idea that if I want to talk to somebody who works for Microsoft, I'm connected to somebody who works for Microsoft by no more than 6 degrees. So I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who works at Microsoft. If I want to work in Tokyo, Japan, I know somebody who knows somebody who works in Tokyo. If I want to work for the Space Telescope Science Institute, I know somebody who works there. So we are connected on this planet by no more than 6 degrees. It's actually a very small community, but this is amazing because it gives you power. Because what it does is it allows us to see that if I do want to work in this country, this organization, this field, this particular company, this particular discipline, or with this particular person, that using LinkedIn in particular, you can find the degrees of connections you are away from the individuals, which is so amazing to me, but also so powerful for us in terms of how we plan out our networking strategy. The other thing that's really important about LinkedIn that I absolutely love about it is that it is a platform that is designed specifically for totally appropriate networking and self-promotion. Now remember, networking is not what can I get from you, it's what can I do for you. And indeed, networking is about building win-win collaborations. How can I help you and your team? So with networking on LinkedIn, it's all about finding new collaborators, finding new people that we could potentially build collaborations with, and appropriately self-promoting what kind of value we would provide those collaborations, what our skills are, what our interests are, what our abilities are, what's our knowledge. This is all built into LinkedIn. So if you're worried about doing self-promotion, that you feel that it's not a right thing, or that it's bragging, or that it's doing something that just doesn't feel right to you or ethically right to you, don't worry, because on LinkedIn, it's totally appropriate. Because remember, when we talk about self-promotion, we talk about never embellishing, we never lie, we only tell the full truth of our value. And so on LinkedIn, we can do that. We can do that in an appropriate way because LinkedIn itself is designed specifically for that. It is the professional marketplace. So it is the place where professionals in all sectors, including academics, including scientists, including you, including your colleagues and peers and your mentor, are present to be able to find new opportunities for partnerships and collaborations. The reality is that whether I'm on LinkedIn or not, when you reach out to, or excuse me, whether you're on LinkedIn or not, when you reach out to me, guarantee the first thing I'm going to do if I've never heard of you is I'm going to Google you, and the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look you up on LinkedIn. So we want to make sure that you are present so that when people go to look up your living CV, your living resume, which is your LinkedIn profile, that they can easily find you. And that's an important part of also why we want to be present on LinkedIn, because people are using that as a way to look up people's backgrounds. Excuse me. So people are also looking here for candidates. So literally a few days ago, I had somebody email me and said, I'd like to meet with you and talk to you about collaboration, about an opportunity. And when I met with her this morning via Zoom, she told me that she found me on LinkedIn. She found me on LinkedIn. I didn't reach out to her. I wasn't following her company or even interacting with anybody from her company, but somehow she found me. She found me most likely because she probably did LinkedIn searches using keywords, and I had those keywords in my description, which I'm going to talk to you about and show you shortly. I had those keywords. So she was able to find me. That's a really important thing. We want to make sure that if there's an amazing job or amazing collaboration or amazing grant or whatever it is, an amazing opportunity of any kind, that people will find you because they're going to be looking on LinkedIn. They look on LinkedIn to invite candidates to apply for positions they might not even be advertising. I want you to have access to those hidden opportunities. LinkedIn is the place. So it is not only the place to be found, but it's also the place to find others and connect, of course. Now, I know you absolutely love my suit, right? This is fantastic, and this is maybe the highlight of your day, compared to the second highlight, which is this talk. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take myself off the webcam, and I'm actually going to do a live tour of LinkedIn. I'm going to go back and forth between my slides and LinkedIn live to show you different features of it and walk you through elements that I think you should be investing your time in. So bye, everybody. I will come back. Remember this, I will come back and you'll see me soon. But now I'm going to just show you the slides. Okay. All right. So now let me walk you through LinkedIn, and let me show you what I wanted to tell you was we're going to look at LinkedIn from 4 different perspectives. So the first thing, 4 different categories is where I want you to spend time on your LinkedIn profile. And I'm actually going to walk you through all of these, but the first category is your profile, and your profile consists of static elements and dynamic elements. The second category is groups. The third category is connections, and the fourth category is search. So as I mentioned, we're going to walk you through all 4 of those. So let's start with your profile, because that's your most important thing. So you have your profile, and there are static elements of that profile. So let me actually show you what my LinkedIn profile looks like live, and I'm actually going to show you that. So here is my LinkedIn profile, this is actually what my profile looks like if you were to click on my name, and you see that I have, I'm going to go through all these different elements of it, but you see I have the picture of myself, you have my name, Elena G. Levine, and then I have my headline. And I also have a customized URL, which is at Elena G. Levine, which you can see up here. I'm going to talk to you about that shortly. I have this about section, which shows you, tells you a little bit more about what I do. It's sort of an executive summary or a summary about the kinds of value that I would provide potential collaborators or customers, if you will. In this, that includes, if I was a student, I want to make this clear, when I use the word customer, I mean anybody that invests a resource in you, so that your customer, if you're a student, your customer is your PI, your advisor, your research mentor. That is what I mean by your customer. So we want to make sure, especially for early in our career, that we are found, right? So we want to be thinking about who would invest resources in us. If we're a student, it might be a graduate program, it might be a faculty member who would potentially engage us to do research. It could be somebody for another type of job. That's the kind of thing we want to think about when we write the about section. I'm going to skip this section here for a moment. This dashboard is very, very helpful. I will come back to this in a moment, but it's very, very useful in essentially getting a view of what it is that LinkedIn can tell us about ourselves. Then I have the experience section, and this is basically taken from my CV or my resume. And that's actually, here's a tip for you, and this is your homework assignment. I'm going to mention this later as well. But your homework assignment for today is to create a LinkedIn profile, in case you didn't guess that that's what I was going to say. You knew I was going to say that. So what I suggest you do is I suggest you take a look at my LinkedIn profile and use that as a template. And the first step is literally just taking your CV or your resume and importing it into the LinkedIn universe, and use that, and then just start adjusting your LinkedIn profile. After that, you can make changes based on the types of things that I say. So in the experience section, I list out where I work right now, which is my company, Quantum Success Solutions. I list out basically what I would list out on a CV or a resume, right? Different accomplishments and elements that I have that would be of use to collaborators. One thing that's really nice about LinkedIn is that it is a dynamic living version of your CV or of your resume. And so you can put links down here, which is what you see right here. You can put links to videos, to your poster, right? Your PDF of your posters. You can put links to websites. You can put links to articles or PDFs, anything that just adds more content and more insight into who you are. And I think that adding that dynamic content is very, very useful. Let me go back for a second to this slide. I just want to show you this slide for a second and show you where we are. And let me walk you through each of these different elements, these static elements of your LinkedIn profile that you can include. So the first thing, as I mentioned, is the catchy headline. So going back to my LinkedIn profile, you'll note that my headline here is not unemployed, hilarious, comedic, and fabulously good dressing speaker. That's not what my headline is. My headline specifically tells other parties what problems I could solve for them. So it highlights my high-level skill sets and accomplishments. So that's why my headline says international keynote and webinar speaker, STEM career consultant, science writer, columnist, comedian, author, networking for nerds. Because these are the key words, and that's the key thing also. These are the key words that people are going to be searching for if I want to be found. I want to be found by people who are looking for keynote, right? Because I'm a keynote speaker. I want to be found by people who are looking for webinar speakers. So I include that in my headline. So the key thing about a headline is that, number one, it does communicate your value in a very succinct way, right? It describes the problems that you solve, but it also includes key words that you want to be found for, opportunities that you want to be found for. So if somebody is searching for astronomer with experience in R or experience with machine learning, then that should be part of your headline. Astronomy PhD student with expertise in gamma ray bursts, studying machine learning, data science, and AI as it relates to the characterization, for example, of gamma ray bursts. You could include in your headline, you could include subfields of astronomy that you're interested in or that you have experience in. It could include your experience, the skills that you've gained from the scientific perspective, as well as even leadership and communication skills. The idea is communicate what it is you can do for the other party. So that's the first thing. Second thing I wanted you to notice here is the picture. And I do encourage you to use a picture. There's been LinkedIn studies that have been actually promoted and published that say, the last study I read was a few years ago, admittedly, and it said that profiles with pictures were something like 7 times more likely to be viewed than a profile without a picture. So I do encourage you to use a picture. The picture should be, I should see your eyes. I should see you smiling because this is a happy day. This is a happy experience. This isn't sad. And it should be a very tight shot. You don't need a whole body shot. It should be just your face. The only caveat to that, I would say, there's two. One would be that I did see a LinkedIn profile picture a few years ago of somebody who was a geoscientist. She took the picture, the photograph that she used was of herself with a piece of equipment that was very unique to be used in the field. So she wanted to demonstrate that that was part of her brand, her promise of value, that she had knowledge of that equipment, so she included it in the photograph. This, which I thought was a very clever thing to do. So I thought that that was a good idea. The second thing, and the second reason that I would encourage you to think secondly about not putting a picture on your profile is for safety reasons. So if you have a concern about your physical safety, do not put your photograph on your LinkedIn profile. Do not sacrifice your own physical or other types of safety just to have a picture. That's an important thing. So the other thing I wanted to tell you about, also continuing down my list, about a customized URL. So the LinkedIn allows you to create a customized URL, and I want to show you actually how to do that. And I actually Googled it to give you the exact directions, but here it is, so you can take a screenshot so you have it handy. But it allows you to go into your profile, edit your public profile and URL, and then you can edit the custom URL right then and there. So the idea is that this is something that you can do, and it's very nice in terms of creating an opportunity for people to know who you are across different platforms. I put my LinkedIn profile, the customized profile, I put that in my email signature. I include it in almost every email that I send, not even including the signature. I say, if you want more information about me, here's my LinkedIn profile. I put it at the end of speeches that I give, whether I'm doing them about LinkedIn or on LinkedIn or not. So it becomes like my calling card. It becomes like my business card, because it immediately points people not only to my living dynamic resume or CV, but because it's a customized URL, it actually makes it easier for people to find me and for people to remember the URL. That's something, just a nice feature about it. So the other elements, the other static elements of your LinkedIn profile include your about section. Now, the way you word and organize your about section is really much dependent on you. Right now, I have it in paragraph format, as you see, but I'm actually thinking about moving it more towards a combination of smaller paragraphs with bullet points, the bullet points describing my high-level skills and my high-level accomplishments. This can change. I did call it a static element, but this can change depending on what new ideas you have, or new experiences or accomplishments or skills you've gained. I've even done an edit recently of my headline. So I'm just literally, I think 2 days ago, I changed my headline to include webinar speaker, because previously it said international keynote speaker by itself, along with the other things in the headline. But of course, in the pandemic, all of my engagements, all of my speaking engagements have been via webinar. So I wanted to make sure that somebody would find me for webinars, so I changed my headline. In the experience section, I would include anything that you've had that literally gave you experience. So that includes jobs where people actually paid you, but it could also be research experiences where you were doing things for credit or for free. It could be a volunteer experience. It could be a leadership role that you had with the astronomy club at your university, or something that you did in the community. It doesn't have to be a paid position. I don't want you to think that you shouldn't put that. The other thing I want you to think about listing your experience is, don't hesitate to put things on your profile that are not what would seem to be quote unquote astronomy related. So what I've seen people do sometimes is, for example, they work jobs as students, as I did. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Arizona, I worked in the pool hall, in the billiards hall, in the basement of the student union at the U of A. And of course, my job was clerk, and I gave out the billiard balls, and I washed the tables, and I, was there to take money and things like that. Not exactly astronomy related, but I included it on my resume as I went out for jobs, because of the fact that it gave me business skills which were useful no matter where I was going and no matter what type of experience I was pursuing. So that's an important thing, is to include anything that gave you experience that's relevant. And then you can also include, of course, your education, right? The degrees that you got. And if you studied abroad, include that in there too. And projects, there's even a section to add projects. Here's your skills section. Now, this is an important section for your profile. Think about this. What you can do is you can actually go through this list. If you click on add a new skill, you will be able to go through a list of skills and identify which skills, as they're worded in that list, you have, and then put them on your profile. And then that allows people to easily find you. If they are, if decision makers, search committees, hiring managers are looking for people with experience in C++ or C# or R or Hadoop or Python, that you have Python listed in your skill set, so they will easily be able to find you. So that's an important thing to think about too. Recommendations are something I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but it's useful. Let me hold off on telling you more about that shortly. You also want to include any honors and awards that you've gotten. You could list out any interests as well. So these are the different things that you can do on LinkedIn in terms of your static page. Let me show you the dynamic elements. So the other part of your profile is more of what I call dynamic, in the sense that you're constantly changing and constantly editing it, and also constantly interfacing with it. So for example, on your LinkedIn profile, let me pull up mine right here. So right here, this is what my feed looks like. My news feed looks like. When I log into LinkedIn, this is what I see. So on the left-hand side here, it tells me, you know, obviously my name, it shows me my picture, my headline, it shows me who's viewed my profile and views of my last post. Let me take a moment here. Let me just shift off to the side for just a moment to clarify that I have, as you can see here, I have a premium version of LinkedIn. So that means that I am not using the free version. But I want to clarify that I wanted to tell you what the differences were, and I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. But I just wanted to say that although I do think that the premium version is expensive, it's I believe it's $60 a month, and I don't take that lightly. That's very expensive in my book. You can try it out for free for a month. So that's something I would encourage you to do, to mix and match and test out different features of premium. The basic premium, the basic LinkedIn is free. And there are a lot of elements of LinkedIn that you can still access in the free version. The premium version allows me a little bit more power. And I just wanted to show it to you so that you would see what were the different elements of LinkedIn that are that do allow you to that of premium that are actually perhaps something you want to explore. What I have actually, in talking with people, what I've actually talked to them, people who are early in their career, for example, postdocs who are just about to get on the job market. I have heard from postdocs and graduate students who are just about to get on the postdoc job market. They have invested in the premium version for a few months, let's say 3 to 6 months, because it unlocks a lot more features and allows them to do more dynamic networking on LinkedIn. And so that might be something that you want to consider too, is not just getting it for free for the first month to try it out, but maybe if you like it, investing in it for a couple of months as you're on the job market, since those are the critical months. So one thing that's really, one element about premium, and this is the premium website that just explores the different features. One aspect of premium that is so helpful is that it allows you to see, here's some of the features right here. It gives you more in-mails, and it allows you to see who's viewed your profile. And for that feature alone, who's viewed your profile, in my opinion, is the most powerful feature of LinkedIn. Honestly, it is the most powerful feature, because what happens is that, let me show you this. What happens is that somebody looks at my profile, and I can click on who's viewed my profile, and it gives me information, it gives me some data about how my profile numbers have increased or decreased in terms of views over the weeks. And I can always tell, what's interesting to me is I can always tell that when I have these peaks here, it's when I give a webinar. So I always am able to tell that when I give a webinar, I have more views. But look at this, I can actually see with LinkedIn Premium, I can actually see who has viewed my profile. And let's say I saw somebody who was Dr. God, right? Somebody who, I use that term lovingly and with respect and humor, who has viewed my profile. Maybe this is somebody who is a leader in her field. Perhaps she is the leading expert in gamma ray bursts in the world, and she looked at my profile, and that's what I want to study as a graduate student, or that's what I want to pursue in my postdoc or as a professor in the future. I see that she viewed my profile. Well, now I can contact her. And I can say, I saw you viewed my profile. I see parallels between our interests. Would it be possible to make a 15-minute Skype or Zoom or WhatsApp appointment with you? I'd like to learn more. Maybe there's a way that we can explore collaboration together. Those are the phrases I might even actually use. So being able to see who viewed your profile and see where they are in their career is extremely helpful, because then you can get ideas. And I know people who have been hired just from that, where they saw Dr. X viewed their profile, they then contacted Dr. X, said I saw you view my profile, I see those parallels, could we talk? And they had a job essentially created for them, or they were able to get the job if it was an advertised position. So it's extremely powerful who's viewed your profile. And from what I understand, it is unlocked significantly greater when you have premium. So that's why I want you to think about that. The other way around it, of course, or the other way to think about it is the opposite direction, is you view other people's profiles, they see that you viewed their profile. So they would see that you are interested, and then they might view your profile, and then you could start a conversation with them. So, and don't think that this is that this is intrusive or this is not appropriate to leverage the who's viewed your profile. That's the whole point of it. The whole point of being on LinkedIn is you see that I looked at your profile, and therefore I'm making that available to you so that you can then contact me and start the conversation, and vice versa. But you will note, I want you to take note that you can change the privacy settings. And this is something I wanted you to be aware of too. So I actually the way I changed the privacy settings is, if you look to the far right here, of course, we all know, if we go under me, for example, right there, settings and privacy, I clicked on that. And that's where I got this section here. And it allows me to change how people view me on LinkedIn. So I can edit my public profile. I can decide who is going to see my email address, who can see my connections, for example, and also who can even see other things, like, for example, my profile visibility off of LinkedIn. But what's very useful is when you are seeking a job, job seeking preferences, is that you can change different settings. Like, for example, I can let recruiters know I'm open to opportunities, or I can signal my interest to recruiters or companies, signal your interest to recruiters or companies you've created job alerts for. So this is useful. If I want to, I can change my settings, my privacy settings, so that I can look for jobs and look at people's profiles without people knowing who I am. So take a look at this really quickly. You see right here, this is who's viewed my profile. You see here it lists the people's names, and I bet Isaac is on the line today. So Isaac, thank you so much for viewing my profile and for attending. But there are 2 people with the job title recruiter who have not been identified. That's because they changed the privacy settings on their profile so that their name would not be there. So they would not be inundated with emails or with contacts. And that's totally fine. You can do that yourself, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. The other thing I wanted you to be aware of too, if you look at my profile, this is something that you can change, which I love, is that you can also add, also under settings, is you can add this line here, open to work. And I can list out, so it's a hashtag open to work, but as you see, it's right there at the top. And I list out what are some of the high level roles. I think you can pick 5 roles that you want to be identified for. And so that's what I put down here, because these are the different positions that people would hire me potentially to do. And so I can actually list that out and make that public to people. So the final aspect of LinkedIn that I wanted to show you, of the dynamic aspect of your profile, is, if I just go back to this first page here, my feed, right here where it says start a post. You can add a photo, you can add a video, you can add a document, you can write an article. And this is where that self-promotion aspect of LinkedIn is extremely, extremely helpful and enriching, because here I could add a post announcing I'm doing a webinar. I could write an article about something that's of interest to the community. I could share another person's post here. But this is where you add dynamic content. This is where you show you're professional and you're trying to add value to the community. And then I can even see who has viewed, or what are the number of views of my recent posts as well. So this is a really great way to promote yourself in an appropriate form. So I want to just bring you back to the slides. These were the slides. This is the elements of the dynamic elements of the profile we just talked about. Let me talk to you now about the groups. Now, admittedly, groups are getting less and less as important on LinkedIn as they were before, but I still think it's relevant to talk to you about it. So I did want to spend a few minutes just going over the issues with the groups. So groups are helpful for networking and for self-promotion, because what groups allow you to do is it allows you to connect with like-minded individuals. It allows you to go through, you can actually look through the membership directory of that group. You can actually look for top contributors to see who has been adding value, who has been posting, and you can even search for jobs. And some hiring managers and decision makers only post jobs on LinkedIn just in general, but they also only post jobs in the groups. So here, let me go to the official American Astronomical Society group. and it tells me how many members, and anybody can join this group, I believe. Diane, you'll correct me at the end if I'm wrong. But you can then start a conversation and promote something in the group that would be of interest to the group, of course. Here I am, I'm promoting about a month ago, I promoted a free webinar that I was doing for the AAS in this group. And I can also, like I said, go through I can invite connections, and I can even see who is a member of this group if I wanted to. So there's different elements of this group of being in groups that are very helpful. So you can join many different groups. I would encourage you to join as many as you can. I even have my own group here, Alina's Alumni, which you are welcome to join, and I will admit you to that, of course. With groups, what you want to do is be proactive and reactive in your posting. So you want to add new content to the group, like I just showed you I did at the AAS, and then you want to react to other people's content. So you post something about an interesting paper that you are publishing, right? A new paper that you have about gamma ray bursts as standard candles and how you can characterize GRBs in a new, unique way using machine learning techniques. And you post that in the AAS group, and I comment on that. I say, this is so interesting. Have you ever tried this technique? Or how did you come to appreciate machine learning for this purpose? I can also react privately. So when you post something, I can then send you an email or send you a message privately through LinkedIn's platform to say, I want to continue this conversation with you. So groups are very helpful. They provide a lot of information, and they provide what I think is a fantastic natural way to network with people who are like-minded and have similar interests. So the third category, of ways to use LinkedIn is through connections, right? And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, you are invited to connect with me on LinkedIn. You do not have to customize the invitation for me, but if you are going to be interacting with other people on LinkedIn, what I do encourage you to do is customize the invitation. Say, I read your paper in AppJ and I thought it was interesting. I'd love to connect with you. Or I saw that you spoke at the virtual summer meeting of the AAS about gamma ray bursts. I'd love to connect with you. So customize so people know why you are wanting to interact with them, and then you can take it to the next step. Afterwards, you could send them a private message and say, I'd like to set up an appointment to talk with you. So how do you find connections? You find them from the groups, as I mentioned. You find them from searches. If you are interested in gamma ray bursts and machine learning, do a LinkedIn search for that. If you are interested in people who work on mission program management and particular type of telescope, do a search for that. Do a search for organizations, right? If you want to work for the Space Telescope Science Institute, do a search for that and find people that are in your network that are 1 or 2 or even 3 degrees away that are working or have worked or have connections at that organization. So using the connections is a very useful way to obviously connect with people, but also to network and to really leverage LinkedIn. I just think it's so amazing. So let me just show you something on my LinkedIn profile. So here's my profile again. And here is a list of, let's see, let me go back. Here are my contacts, my connections. So I'm going to click on, I have over 500 connections. I think I have thousands more. So it looks like I have 5,500 connections. So these are all the different people that I have connections, their first degree connections to me. And so I can go through this list, of course, to see my own connections, but because you and I are connected, now my understanding is that you can also go through my connections, particularly if you have premium. So being on LinkedIn allows you to search through other people's connections. So if you see that I am connected to somebody, here's somebody who's the chief executive officer of the Desert Angels, which is an investment group based in Tucson, Arizona, that invests in entrepreneurial ventures. If you were interested in collaborating with the Desert Angels, you would see that I have this connection in my connections. You'd be able to go through my connections and see, and be able to ask me, could you introduce me to this person? And that's something that we can also do in LinkedIn, is you can ask to be introduced. So by doing searches to see who I am connected to, you can then ask me through LinkedIn, can you introduce me to this person? And then I can easily do it. There's a method to do that. The other thing also that I wanted to point out to you on LinkedIn, if you look at my profile, is that, as I mentioned, you can ask for and give in recommendations. So let me show you this really quickly. This section of my LinkedIn profile, these are recommendations from real LinkedIn users. So it wasn't like I just wrote that, for example, here's Helen Kim of the Caltech Alumni Association. I didn't just write and manifest Helen's recommendation. It's tied to her profile itself. And so what you can do is you can actually ask your connections to recommend you. There's a way to do that. You can see right there, ask for recommendations. You can also offer recommendations, and all of those recommendations will appear on your profile. You have power over whether or not you want them to appear or not. And you can also provide recommendations too, but what's really nice about recommendations in terms of your profile and in terms of making connections is that it allows people to see what the community is specifically saying about you, and we know that these are real profiles. These are real profiles. They're not you just making this up. So it is a very, very useful thing to do. The other thing also that I really like about LinkedIn, I'm just going to go back to the slide for a second, is that LinkedIn allows me to organize and keep track of my connections. And so it actually, people ask me, how do you organize your network, Elena? LinkedIn is the way I do it. It's a combination for me. It's a combination of using LinkedIn. It's a combination of using my email and my calendar, but LinkedIn is the primary way that I keep my network organized. So it's a very useful thing. Now there is even, I believe, a section on LinkedIn that allows you to make a note. Diane, I'm just going to pull up your profile here really quickly. And I'm going to use you as an example. I hope you don't mind. So Diane, my good friend Diane, who of course has been helping us today, there she is. She's amazing. She's one of my contacts, and there's her contact information. So she can actually change, and as you can, we can change how our contact information is shared. As you can see, I can easily message her. Looking at up this, I can give kudos. I can save her profile as a PDF or send it to somebody else. Here's where I can recommend or request a recommendation from her. And I can also add, note that what some of Diane's top skills are, and I can add that to our conversation too. There used to be a section, and I guess they don't have it anymore, where you could actually make private notes about the party that only you would see. So if I had a great meeting with Diane and we talked about doing X and Y, I can make a note of that on LinkedIn. And I don't see it there anymore. They might have removed that, but it's something you could potentially even explore as well. So the last piece of LinkedIn that I want you to be aware of is the search feature. Search is so, so useful. And by the way, I am taking your questions. I see we have a few. Don't worry, I'm here. I'm going to be taking them. The last element of LinkedIn that we want to think about is the search feature, which is extremely powerful. You can do searches for organizations and individuals. You can search for jobs. You can search for people, interests, and locations. Let me show you this. I pulled up jobs. I went to the job site, which is actually right here on the main menu bar, looked up jobs, and now I can do a search for a job based on a skill, a title, an organization. I can do a search based on a region of the world. Here, I was doing some searches for a client for software engineers and computer engineers, and this is what came up first. Of course, the algorithm on LinkedIn will also suggest jobs to me based on my profile. So here's writing jobs and development director jobs, and a childcare partnership coordinator, which I think is hilarious since I have no children. So I don't know what that algorithm glitch is about, but whatever. Anyway, the point is that this is actually a very useful tool, notwithstanding the idea that I should ever be taking care of children. But my favorite search feature, my favorite search feature is the alumni feature. So on your profile of LinkedIn, on your university page, I'm a University of Arizona alumna, so I went to the University of Arizona page on LinkedIn. The way I got there was on my profile. I listed myself as University of Arizona as my school. I clicked on that and I got to this page. That's what you see right here. And here's what it shows me, that over 200,000 alumni, self-identified admittedly, alumni of the University of Arizona are here on the LinkedIn profile. And then it tells me, and I get this, by the way, by clicking on alumni right there on the left, it tells me that I can actually search the alumni. This is actually one of my most favorite features of LinkedIn, to find people to network with. It tells me where they live. It tells me where they work, what organizations they work for. Then I continue to the right and I find out what they actually do, what their jobs are, what they studied, and continuing to the right, what they're skilled at and how I'm connected. So I have 180,000 third degree connections, but only 335 first degree connections. So I'm going to go back to the previous here. So let's say I was interested in connecting with astronomy graduates of the University of Arizona. So I'm going to type under field of study, I'm going to type astronomy. And there it is, astronomy. And now look what shows up. It shows me that worldwide and on the LinkedIn profile, there are 487 people on LinkedIn who have self-identified as University of Arizona astronomy alumni. And then I scroll to the bottom and here's those people. And it tells me where they work, what they do. It tells me their degree connection away from me. So these people are all second degree connections. So this is absolutely useful information, because once you identify other fellow alumni, you can start to connect with them. Take advantage of this resource and start pursuing it. Start playing around with this. It's so, so helpful. So these are the different ways that you can search. And I do encourage you to take even an hour and just start playing around with different ways of searching that would be very, very useful for you and would be helpful to find different aspects of people's backgrounds and different jobs and different opportunities for you. So now I'm going to put back on the camera. Are you all ready? Here we go. Oh my God. Yas, here I am. I'm back. Okay, back and better than ever. More excited. I've had coffee while we've been talking, so I'm even more frenetic. Let me finish up for today, and then I'm going to take your questions. Final thoughts about social media, networking, monitoring, and maintenance. Just be aware of everything that you put online. Google yourself and do a LinkedIn search regularly, and understand and utilize privacy settings appropriately, because you want to be aware who's reading your stuff. Everybody is. So keep your announcements and your posts appropriate for the social media platform that you're using, right? LinkedIn is not the same as Twitter. I don't need to know what sandwich you had. I don't need to know that you are interested in eating this particular cupcake. That's more appropriate for certain aspects of Twitter, but it's not appropriate for LinkedIn. What we're trying to do on LinkedIn in particular is deliver valuable content, return on investment for the reader, so that they will get something of value and be able to amplify our brand and our reputation, not only in terms of their brain, but to people within their community as well. So in sum, social media presence, participation, monitoring, maintenance, organization, all absolutely necessary. It can really greatly help you expand your network, but the information should go both ways. That's the reactive and the proactive. So be professional in content and communications and attitude. Note that anything goes on there that's on there is there forever, and recognize that more and more employers do social media searches than ever before. So we want to be very, very mindful of that. So speaking of social media, as I mentioned, if you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, you are welcome to do that. You're welcome to continue tweeting and posting anything that I said or we viewed on LinkedIn. That's totally fine. This webinar was recorded and you will be able to review it. And now, thank you so much for attending. Of course, thank you so much. Thank you to the AAS. I'm going to stick around for your questions. Diane, what do we got?
Well, we've got a few. Here's the first one. It's from Elizabeth. And she asks, generally, I'm not very active on social media. How often should you post to LinkedIn to be considered active and dynamic?
Great question, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for asking that. I think it depends. It all depends on a couple of things. First of all, it depends on what your immediate career needs are. If you need a job in the next, let's say 3 to 6 months, I would post every few weeks. And as you get closer and closer to that moment in time when you do need a job, and let's say you don't have one yet, I would post perhaps once a week or even a couple of times a week, because we want to make sure that we're delivering fresh content and keeping our brand in the minds of decision makers. So I would say use that as your guide. If you're not up against a deadline of any kind, you could then design your own timeline. It could be every few weeks, it could be once a month. For me, it just depends on what I actually have to deliver. If I don't have anything useful at that moment, I'm not going to write fluff. I'm only going to write something that's going to be of use to the audience. So I'm also going to be strategic in thinking about that. What you can do as you're getting started in terms of thinking about when to post and what to post is you can write out a calendar for yourself, where let's say you have a goal of posting, let's say every 3 weeks for the next 6 months. So you write out a plan and you start to think about what you could write and what you could post every 3 weeks. And maybe that involves, making a note where you're going to be reading the recent papers in AppJ to maybe share somebody's paper. Maybe you're going to take a look at the recent conference for the AAS and see what was on the scientific program and maybe post, did anybody attend this amazing lecture? It was really interesting. So adding that calendar and creating a calendar for yourself will actually give you the skills and will help you hone your abilities in knowing what's the right amount and also knowing what is the right items to be posting. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right, the next one is from Annalise, and she says, I'm in the latter half of my Astro PhD, and I'm wondering when to start sending out job applications. A year before I defend my thesis, 6 months before, etc. I'm interested in jobs in industry, not academia.
So thank you, Annalise, for that great question. And we are actually going to approach that question with more depth in a future webinar. So stay tuned, but I'll give you a hashtag spoiler alert because I absolutely love them. Spoiler alert for you, Annalise. What you want to do is there's 2 ways of thinking about applying for jobs, particularly in industry, but honestly, this goes for academia, is certainly when a job is advertised, if you see an advertised position, you can apply for it. Even if you're not ready to finish, you could potentially negotiate that and talk about that as you pursue the job opportunity. The other way to think about it is you should be networking way in advance of when you actually need that job. So by starting now on your LinkedIn strategy and your more broad networking strategy, which I talked about in a previous webinar, which you can find on the AAS website, you could actually start your plan now to start getting known in the field and essentially have yourself considered for positions even early on, even though it's early in your exploration and in the process of you getting a job. So stay tuned. We will go into detail about that in a future webinar.
Okay, the next question is one that I had too. The way I asked it is, how picky should you be when receiving invitations to connect? And our attendee said, should we keep the connections that are not relevant to our career or profession?
So absolutely, thank you, attendee. I appreciate your question, and it is a good one, a very good one. I am very open-minded for the most part in terms of my networking. I don't want to not, let's say my background's math and physics, let's say I have a degree in mathematics. Let's use my profession. I'm a professional speaker. What I'm not going to do in networking in general and LinkedIn in specific, what I'm not going to do is I'm going to not limit myself to just professional speakers, because that is cutting off potential for innovation and collaborations and networking by only networking with people who are in my profession or my field. We have to be more open and more broad with our networking, and particularly on LinkedIn. And so what we have to aim to do is diversify our networks. So I welcome invitations to connect from people who are not in science, who are not a speaker, who are not a writer, people who are in other parts of the world. I welcome that diversity because that diversity is going to make me sharper. It's going to make me a better innovator in my field. There is always value to be had when you speak with a master craftsman or craftswoman who is a master at their craft, even if that craft is not yours. So don't close the door to networking outside of your field. It all can potentially help you to think about projects and think about opportunities and learn about opportunities that are unique that would be helpful to you. That's a really great point. I'm glad you brought it up. I think we have time for one more question, right, Diane?
I think so, and I've got one queued up. So here we go. How can potential graduate student applicants leverage the use of LinkedIn to connect to potential grad school mentors? I have heard that LinkedIn is useful to find jobs, but that students applying to graduate school should be careful with its use, since professors might think of it as an unprofessional way to connect with them as compared to emails because it is seen as social media. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, and thank you for that excellent question too. I think it's totally appropriate if you are interested in applying. Let's use the University of Arizona, my alma mater, as an example. If you're interested in applying to graduate school at the U of A, your first thing that you would do would be to go onto the U of A Astronomy Department, Steward Observatory web pages, and look through the faculty, look through their different research areas, and see which faculty are doing things that you would be interested in doing in graduate school, areas that you would be interested in studying and delving into. So that would be your first step. The second step you would be, I totally agree with this, email those professors and say, I am considering applying to the U of A for graduate school. I see that you work on galactic cartography, or stellar cartography. Could I make an appointment with you? I'd like to learn more about this field and how I could potentially position myself for success if I were to join your program, and what types of opportunities might be available for me in your graduate program and perhaps working with you on a graduate research project. The next thing you can do is connect with them on LinkedIn. Totally appropriate. I think with faculty, with scientists, there is still a little bit of there's not as many of them many of us, I should say, on LinkedIn. There's more and more joining, more academics and more scientists who are joining LinkedIn. And it is a recognized, not just by me, it is a recognized professional marketplace, no matter what field we are in. So I really do think that it is useful for you to go onto LinkedIn. But perhaps with graduate school, with that, the first thing is your goal, perhaps starting with the emails and then connecting with them on LinkedIn is more appropriate. And we can double down, and when you email them, you can say, I'm happy to send you my CV, and also here is my LinkedIn profile, which has my CV on it. Boom, you already have given them that information. So that's a way of utilizing LinkedIn in a very appropriate way for pursuing graduate work. So thank you, Diane. Thank you to the American Astronomical Society. Again, this is always truly my privilege, my pleasure, and my honor to work with you. And it's my privilege, my pleasure, and my honor to work with you, the audience. I want to thank you for your kind attention. And as always, I don't wish you good luck with your career. I just say enjoy your amazing ride, because you're in for an exciting opportunity that you will create for yourself. So thank you so much, and I'll see you at the next webinar.